All right, Brian, in part two of today's show here on the Irish Breakdown podcast brought to you by FanDuel, we're diving into the keys to victory, but for the Notre Dame offense. And this has been the side of the ball that has kind of been the shimmering light. And I don't want to use the word surprise because we spent a lot of the offseason talking about, hey, they got C.J. Carr, best running back field in the country, we believe, a very underrated, group of wide receivers and tight ends and pass catchers. So I'm not surprised that they're playing this well. I'm a little surprised that they're playing this well this early in the season. And that's a little bit of a surprise. But look, man, when we talk keys to victory on the road, got to start fast. Notre Dame's offense has to start fast, and they did that against Purdue.
Oh, goodness gracious. I mean, it was one of their better start fast games in a while. I mean, just really couldn't be stopped to start that game. It wasn't until their fifth possession that they got stopped, and that was a big stop because they fumbled the ball and gave the other team short field, and they got a field goal out of it. So you have not been great in the – we talked about win the turnover battle in part one. We should have mentioned Notre Dame's points off turnovers mark this year is not good. I mean, they're losing the points off turnover battle, and I would be willing to bet you that they're losing the points off turnovers battle bigger than they've lost their first two games. I'll bet you the margin in that, and that's just I haven't looked that up, but I'm willing to bet that that's the case. Obviously that's been a problem, but your offense has done well so far. You were okay with your early start against Texas A&M. I mean, look, you put 17 points on the board, offensive points on the board in the first half against A&M. That's not bad. Obviously, you didn't get points in your first drive, but I mean, they gave the team a 17-7 lead with some help from the special teams, and A&M comes back and makes it 14-10 in the offense, it was 17-14, excuse me. And then your offense goes down and scores again and answers with another touchdown, and you're thinking 24-14, like, hey, this is pretty good. And then, of course, A&M goes down and gets the two touchdowns, and then in part because of your own turnover that gave A&M a short field and allowed them to get a score. So you're starting fast is going to be huge. Again, confidence in yourself. It's a lot of the same reasons we've talked about before. You've got to continue building confidence. When the other side of the ball is struggling, which this defense is struggling mightily, and your side of the ball, which has been good so far, struggles in a game, that can cause you to press, and it can put pressure on even more pressure on the other side of the ball that's already struggling. So the biggest key, Trev, is you've got to build up confidence in yourselves and continue with the confidence you've been building on offense. But then it also, I think, gives your defense pressure like, hey, guys, our offense came to play today. Let's just relax. Let's go play ball. Let's do our jobs, and we'll be okay. As opposed to, crap, the offense isn't playing well. Now there's even more pressure on us to step up and make plays and make stops. And that can last year's defense, I'm not worried about that. Last year's defense did that every week. This year's defense, it concerns me. So that's number one. And then number two, Trev, I don't care if it's 11 o'clock, and I don't care that they're not going to be allowed to tailgate for 8-9 hours. This is still Notre Dame. And this is the Arkansas fans are going to be fired up for this game. It's going to be packed. It's going to be loud. And early in the game, if you're coming out there and you're not moving the ball and you're just playing, boring offense and, let's control the clock and that's because I don't think that's who this team is. You can run the ball all you want. I don't care, but you're a big play attacking offense. That's who you need to be. And if you come out and you're not that, and you're selling for field goals, or you're not putting the ball in the end zone, or you're turning it over, or you're punting, that's going to get this Arkansas team more and more fired up. And it's going to get this Arkansas crowd more and more fired up, Trev, and they just can't allow that to happen.
No, I mean, the concerns that you had last week around Marcus Freeman letting the offense go be the offense, I have those concerns this week because I'm concerned that his defensive mindset and the philosophy is, okay, this is a very high-powered offense. I know he knows the defense is struggling. One of the things that you do, just very elementary big pictures, okay, well, it's hard for them to score points if they're not on the field. But this offense isn't built to go on 13, 14, 15 play drives that eat up 7 minutes a clock. I mean, can they? Yeah. Will they have that type of success against a big physical Arkansas defensive front? Maybe. But I'm not willing to bet on that, Brian. To your point, you got to find different ways to push the tempo. You got to find ways to still take your shots downfield. because Marcus Freeman's other philosophy is as long as the offense scores one more point than what the defense allows, then they're going to be sitting in a good spot. That's something he said earlier this week in a press conference. And so this offense is going to have to find a way to stay in rhythm. And we've seen this year that when they do find tempo, when they do get into a rhythm, they are extremely difficult to stop. And that's not just about Purdue. You throw an interception, then you lead back-to-back scoring drives against Miami. The offense looked really good against Texas A&M in moments, streaky moments, but they were able to piece a couple of drives together. And then, unfortunately for them, it's sometimes when it rains, it pours, that type of thing, where, you start to stack 3-and-outs. But this offense is going to have to find a way to push the tempo. They got to be consistent. You got to wear Arkansas down. Use what you have to your advantage. I said earlier, you don't have a 387-pounder. Make that the advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Make them substitute. Put them in a position where it's difficult to substitute. Push the tempo. Get the ball to the perimeter. There's a lot of different things they could do in this one, man. A lot of different things.
Yeah, and some of those things I'll kind of, will be part of our keys also. But like the other thing about starting fast too, Trevor, is I feel like teams like Arkansas, 2 losses in a row, devastating losses, self-inflicted wounds at the end of both games, just that we're crushing. Kind of been a really streaky team in the past. They're going to go one or two ways, and I think like the first quarter is going to decide that. First quarter and a half is going to decide that. Either A, you come out and you're just boom, 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 3 possessions, 3 scores, they fold, blowout win. Or 3-and-out or punt, you hold them to next drive field goal, next drive turnover. Next thing you know, this team is now super confident, and they are the ones that are now getting hot, and now you're behind the 8 ball. The other part of starting fast, too, is you have to at least be prepared that your defense is still going to continue to struggle, and you've got to be prepared to match score for score until the defense can figure it out. You can't fall behind in a game like this. You can't, because Arkansas is capable. They're not exactly a ground and pound team. They can run the ball, but they're a big play team as well. With their size on the offensive line and running back, they can run the clock if they need to, if your defense is struggling. Now, all of a sudden, you're down 14 points, and then they take up 6-7 minutes. It's not out of the realm of possibility, Trevor, that Notre Dame is going to give up a long scoring drive. Why do I say that? Because that's what we have already seen this season from them. A&M had a 5-minute scoring drive that resulted in a field goal. A&M had another 5-minute scoring drive or 4-minute scoring drive that resulted in a touchdown. But I'm even more so thinking about the Miami game, where Miami had back-to-back scoring drives. One went 5:09. The very next one went 7.5. And so we've seen teams do this to Notre Dame before, and we got to make sure that that's not what happens in this game. So the more you can score early, the more your defense has time to figure stuff out. So you have to at least have that mindset of, we've got to be prepared to win in a shootout. And if it doesn't happen that way, then you still keep rolling, and then the defense is great, and they can pin the ears back, and you can go after it. So I think it's another key to this, the fast start for Notre Dame.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I mean, it's like we talk about every week: start fast and stay fast. I won't dive into the numbers of what they did last year in first possessions, but at the end of the day, we've seen this Notre Dame team before come out and score in the opening drives more times than not, and then they follow that up with a 3-and-out or a turnover.
Mm-hmm.
If you give Arkansas the feeling that they're still in this and they can still hang around and still be in this game, especially when you're on the road, they can jump all over you, man. They can absolutely jump all over you. I know we touched on it a little bit, Bryan, already, but the next key to victory that we had was push the tempo, attack, and wear Arkansas's defense down. That's something that they're going to have to do a good job of on Saturday.
This is a big team on defense, Trev. They're big boys in the D-line. We talked about that. And my concern is, if you slow the game down, huddle all the time, you're snapping the ball with less than 10 seconds left all the time, you're lining up, you're just letting them get lined up, you're not really doing a whole lot pre-snap, this team is going to be like, this is what we want to do. This is how we want to play ball. You watch them against Ole Miss, you watch them against Memphis, you go back to last year and watch games from last year. I'm watching the Texas Tech game from last year. Early on, Texas says Tech was struggling to move the ball and score against Arkansas. I think it was like 21-3 at one point in time. Texas Tech ended up winning like 39-26 because you could see it in the middle of the second quarter because Texas Tech kept pushing and kept going at them and spreading them out and going at them. That it got to a point where those big old linemen were just like, they were gassed. I mean, they were just hands on shoulders. They were standing up at the line at the snap and just kind of letting themselves get blocked. They were gassed. And that can be the case with a lot of these guys. So I want to see them be aggressive, push the tempo, get these linemen chasing. And we've got our next 2 points will kind of play into this a little bit of specifically how you can do this. But you've got to be able to wear this team down. We saw something similar. I'm actually going to pull up the box score of this game. But I remember watching the Arkansas, and it was a little bit of a different personnel, but Arkansas was still big at this point in time. And I remember watching the game where LSU played them in 2023, the last time Mike Denbrock was down there or played them. So 23 was in LSU, but Arkansas was up 13-10 at halftime, but they were up 13-3. LSU scores on a big touchdown pass with less than a minute left in the second quarter to make it 13-10. But you could see Arkansas late in the second quarter starting to wear down, starting to get tired, starting to start missing more tackles, missing more run fits. And you go back and watch the second half of that game, and LSU started running the ball up the middle. Logan Diggs had a huge run against them. Josh Williams came in and had a big run against them. Logan had one, and you're just running right at him. And first half, they had like very little running room against Arkansas. Second half, all of a sudden, these holes are opening up and they're gassing them. Why? Those boys were worn down. They were tired from just the pace of the game that LSU was going at them and just throwing the ball down the field and getting 20-yard runs and having to run 20 yards to get lined up and then go right at it again. So I think that's something that Notre Dame needs to take a lesson from. You know what a 387-pound kid and a 323-pound kid and a 315-pound kid don't want to do? Play 50 snaps or play fast. You start doing that, you get them on their heels. Now you can run the ball right at them. So I think I don't think shortening the game is good for Notre Dame in this game. I think extending the game and making them play more snaps on defense is exactly how you wear this football team down. And that's the difference between, them being fresh in the fourth quarter of a close game and you pulling away in the second half of this game. So I absolutely want to see Notre Dame be very physical in this game and get after it in this game and say, hey, we're the better football team. We're the better athletes, and we're better conditioned. Those are things that I want to see from Notre Dame in this game.
I mean, we watched teams try to go right at this Arkansas team last year and fail to do so and not try to stretch it to the perimeter and take advantage of matchups on the outside. Prime example is when Arkansas played Tennessee at home. Tennessee last year with Nico at quarterback, they had Dylan Sampson as their running back, who I believe was the SEC Offensive Player of the Year last year. I mean, you go and you think about what they tried to do in that game. And they tried to play Arkansas straight up. They didn't try to get the ball to the perimeter to score wide, or, they didn't utilize Nico in the pass game. He averaged 5.4 yards a pass against Arkansas. They averaged 4.8 rushing yards as a team. What happened, Brian? Tennessee lost 19-14. When you play that style of game, the game that Arkansas's defense wants you to play, and you try to go at their size, that's when they have the advantage. But if you start pushing the ball to the perimeter, yes, they have an offense that can keep them around games to where it won't look, 41-20. That's why their final score against Ole Miss was 41-34. That's why Ole Miss was 32-31 or whatever it was. I mean, you have the offense to do it, but you have to take advantage of those matchups on defense. I agree completely. So then, Brian, we get into the conversation. How does Notre Dame do that? And our third key to victory is to be able to spread them out in the run game and in the pass game. Got to be able to take advantage of those matchups.
Absolutely. It gets back to it. It goes in line with what we were just talking about. This is a bigger defense. It's also a defense that's not overly disciplined. The more you spread them out, the more you open up run lanes for your speed, the more that you make them have to chase, the more that you have to force them to fit in space where it's not lineman, linebacker, safety stacked on top of each other, but it's lineman here, linebacker out there, safety way back there, because you're spreading them out and you're going with some pace. So I think there's plenty of things that Notre Dame can do to line up and go at them. And that doesn't mean you go 10, 11 personnel all game. You could go 12 personnel. There's different things you can do and maybe bunch them up and then get the ball outside, because spread them out isn't just about lining up with spread alignments. Spreading them out is also how you attack them. It means force them to chase to the perimeter, force them to defend you vertically, force them to say, hey, look, you want to go 12 personnel and get your box real tight, then we'll run a jet sweep, or we'll run a reverse, or we'll do something where we're going to get the ball outside and get those guys chasing, because those linemen are going to look good chasing down screens maybe early in the game. But I'd like to see Cameron Ball, after 40 snaps, try to chase down Jeremiah Love in space in the third and fourth quarter. But if you're only on snap 31 because you're in the slow the clock down, limit possessions type of game, I've always felt limiting possessions and slowing the game down simply means instead of losing 44-41, you're going to lose 24-21. That's all. To me, that's all that means. You're still going to lose. You're just going to lose in a lower scoring game. If your defense can't make stops, that just means they have fewer stops that they're going to, not make. It doesn't mean that's going to be the secret recipe of your defense all of a sudden being good, because it's not like Notre Dame lacks depth. You only slow the game down when you're just, dude, we're down to 5 linemen, and we don't have the depth to, we need to take a breather. No, you got plenty of linemen to rotate. Offense scores in 3 plays and you just got off the field after 10-play drive. Rotate your next talented group of players in. Oh, gee, I guess you're going to have to put Kingston, Viliama, Austin, Madden, Faremo in at linebacker, since Drake and Jaden Osbury played the whole series. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you're fine. Or the other way around. Kingston was on the field the last drive. Okay, that's not the point. The point is, this isn't a game that you ground and pound it. This is a game that you have the speed advantage, the athleticism advantage. Use it to your advantage in this game. And that's certainly what I want to see is spread them out formationally, spread them with motions, spread them out with how you attack them. Marcus Freeman said day he was hired, offensively, he wants to attack vertically and for width. Make them to defend the width of the field and the length of the field offensively. That's going to be very important in this football game. And teams that have done that to Arkansas the last couple of years have had a lot of success. It doesn't always start early, but eventually they start making mistakes. They miss tackles. They have bad fits. They have blown assignments, and all of a sudden somebody's running wide open. And Ole Miss did that to them. Memphis did that to them. It happened to them a lot last year. And you're just like, dude, where were you on that? That's Arkansas. That's who they are. But if you try to slow it down, go 12 personnel, ground and pound it, you're playing right into their hands. And I don't think Notre Dame's going to do that. I'll be surprised if Notre Dame. I always have that fear with a defensive head coach, and I definitely had that last week. But you need to use your advantage and speed and go at them. It just it ties into the overall, like we talked about, the aggressive nature that this football team needs.
One of the ways that they're going to be able to do that, Bryan, is our 4th key to victory. Notre Dame is going to have to do some things to mix up the run game, work Arkansas's defense inside and out. And that was something that, we talked about diversity in the run game last week when they were getting ready to face Purdue. That's another thing that I'm hoping to see from this offense again. I hope Mike Denbrock is very intentional about switching up, inside zone, mid zone, duos, counters, counter trays. That was a thing of beauty to watch on Saturday against Purdue.
It was.
You're going to have to find different ways to attack this Arkansas defensive front. You can't just expect Notre Dame to run inside zone duo the entire game.
Right. Well, that would be even more foolish because you're running right downhill at a big boys that want you to run right downhill. Mid zone's been their bread and butter play this year. Run it. It's great. It's a great play against a team like this. But it can't be the only play you run, it was predominantly that way against A&M. It's like you said, Trev, we saw mid-zone, we saw inside zone, which the difference between mid-zone and inside zone, the way Notre Dame runs it, is mid-zone is kind of a stretch type of play. You're attacking the inside hip of the tackle. Inside zone is a downhill and cut back run. It is a physical run. It can be very difficult to tell the difference between Notre Dame's inside zone and their duo play. They attack you very similarly. Reads are a little different. There's some slight footwork differences, but it's used in very many ways the same way. And the difference, Notre Dame will call it differently depending on kind of what the defense is doing. If you're getting more of a base look, a lot of times they'll do more inside zone. If you're getting a team that does a lot of movement, they'll maybe do more duo. But you run those things. Run your counter. have some gap schemes, because against a team like this, you're not always just going to double team and move them off the line. Sometimes you just got to pin that guy inside and get outside of them. And that's what gap schemes are designed to do. That's what your kick play does. That's what your counter plays do. That's what a buck sweep does. Where you're like, look, we're having trouble moving this guy off the line early in the game, so let's just down block on him and then get somebody out moving in space. Run your counters, run an outside zone. Use your jets and motions not just to get there, to mess up the eye discipline, but if those linebackers aren't reacting to it, and I don't know why anyone would react to Notre Dame's motions right now because they don't do anything with their motions. I mean, they've thrown to their motions a couple times, but they don't hand off to it. They don't really throw to it that much. This is the game maybe start to do that a little bit and get them thinking, oh, shoot, I got to go this way. And then next time you fake that handoff and then Jeremiah's on a little counter step or Jadarian's on a little counter step backside and the linebackers are going this way while your blockers are going this way. Right now, they can just key your linemen. They just key your offensive line. They don't have to worry about the motions and stuff. So I'd like to see some of that stuff as well. But that's where that run game variety comes from, Trev. And it is an inside-out attack. Inside is still inside zone, duo, and mid zone are still that's your babies. And then counter, but then also having some stuff on the perimeter, outside zone, maybe a toss. I don't know that I love toss. People love toss. I don't know that I love that this game because they do have bigger, better tackling secondary players that can fill and but you can do some stuff with jets and some perimeter stuff, some perimeter screens where I do think you can get outside of them. And so I like that inside out approach, but just give their linebackers different things to worry about. And, I think that if it's as well designed as it was last week, I think this offense can run the ball on Arkansas. So not everybody that's only watched them play their most recent game. Well, Memphis ran for 290 on them. Notre Dame should run all over them, as we explained yesterday. So far this season, that's their anomaly. And they only had a couple games like that last year. They shut down Ole Miss's run game, and Ole Miss has run the ball for over 200 yards well over 200 yards on everybody else they've played. And so they went for $118 against Arkansas. That's not normally what this offense does, but Notre Dame can run the ball on them. It's just going to be different than what Memphis did because Memphis had a very dynamic quarterback who rushed for over 100 yards. So you could run the jets with the read zone where he was going to run or hand off the jet, or he was going to keep it, or an outside zone read where he would hand it off or keep it, or read zone where he's going to pull and get out the backside. You're not really doing that with Notre Dame. CJ can move the chains that way, but it's not something that you're going to be like, dude, if you're pulling it and having CJ Carr run on the perimeter and not giving to Jeremiah Love, that's a win for us as a defense.
Yeah.
Fine. Let CJ Carr keep pulling it and see how that goes for you. So it's a different type of attack, and you're going to have some answers. And Arkansas, I promise you, will crash the backside of your offensive line. You have to have some answers for that as well. That's the one thing that I'm not concerned about. I want to just see how Notre Dame handles that in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, FanDuel thinks that they're going to be able to run the football relatively well on Arkansas's defense. Right now, Jeremiah Love's over-under, his rushing yards is set at 97.5. Jadarian Price's over-under is set at 56.5. So they think they'll combine for right around a little over 150 yards. I think the over-under, their total is like 153.5, I think, 152.5. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they're able to fare in the run game against this Arkansas defense. But, Bryan, our last key to victory, we're going out to the perimeter and talking pass game. Notre Dame has to be able to create ISOs in the pass game and take advantage of your matchups when a safety's matched up on Eli Raridan or Malachi Fields against Julian Neal. Those are going to be two matchups that are going to be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, you talked about those yesterday, Trev, as well. You talked about Eli. You talked about getting Jaden Greathouse matched up against their safeties and linebackers. There are things you can do formationally and especially with motions that I think you can kind of dictate their coverage to them, that if you move in certain ways, they're going to roll to certain coverages that I think are going to work for you. I want to see Notre Dame be creative in that way, use their formations, use their motions to try to ISO certain guys. I also think, and you mentioned this yesterday as well, Trevor, I think it's a great point, and I'll build on it here, is there's definitely some things you can do with your tight ends and your running backs in ISOs as well. And so what I mean by ISOs is if you're able to line up certain ways or run certain post snap switches, or like even something as simple as like a reduce alignment by the tight end or by your boundary receiver, and a trips to the field where maybe you put Eli Raridon backside and you force them to kind of say, we're going to overreact to go over here and play over here, and then you've got Eli Raridon running a corner route on a safety if they're going to go corners over. If they're not going to go corners over, then guess what you have to the trip side with Malachi Greathouse and Jordan Faison to that side is you've got a safety and a linebacker now involved in coverage responsibility. So like that's an example of things that you can do formation wise that puts them in some binds personnel wise. Say, what are you going to do? So then let's say they put corners over and they keep a safety or a linebacker backside on Raridon. Now all of a sudden you're running some kind of combination where your 6'7", 4'5" tight end is running something, and you've got Jeremiah Love running some kind of wheel route, trail route, philo route, angle route, something backside as well, where now you've got some great ISO opportunities backside. Or you can go in a motion and you can get Jaden Greathouse in a certain ISO against somebody. Or, you could have situations where I'm going to put Faison or Greathouse backside, and I'm going to put Malachi Fields front side, and I'm going to have him be my guy that runs a slot fade because I think we can get in a matchup there that we like. Whatever the case may be, Trev, there's a lot of things Notre Dame can do formationally, with motions, with alignments, and with play calls, especially with some post-snap switch stuff against a very undisciplined defense, things where you've got to get them to make decisions and communicate. No, you got that guy, I got this guy. That's how people get turned loose. And I think Mike Denbrock's done a pretty good job of that this season. Like, I remember at one point in time last year, somebody asked, why aren't our offensive linemen or why aren't our receivers ever running wide open like other teams have all the time when they watch college football? Well, number one, because you just watch highlights. And so obviously you're going to see those plays on highlights. But number two is I don't know that Notre Dame did a lot of those things. We were always begging to do some post-snap switch stuff. And then sometimes they would create some of those opportunities. And then there's a couple other times when they had a play like that, like against Purdue, and your offensive tackle gets launched into your quarterback before he can throw the ball, and you don't see that opportunity. But I mean, you look at games this year. I mean, Eli Raridon coming open down the field. You think of Malachi beating a guy on a post route ISO. He's one-on-one with a post route. CJ talked about his read. He goes, once I saw that it was one-on-one, I knew we had it. You think of twice against A&M, you had a running back running up the sideline, for a potential big play. Second time was even more open than the first time. Like, you're worried sometimes as a coach when you call a play and they didn't cover it well. You're like, man, they're going to adjust. And then they ran it again, which I loved for Mike Denbrock. And then this time A&M covered it even worse than they did the first time. And it goes for a touchdown. And then you had to play also in that game where Raridon kind of runs the delay wheel route. He's wide open for a big play. Mike Denbrock's done a pretty good job so far this season of doing things that are designing opportunities to get his guys in space. And I definitely want to see more of that in this game. And there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Throwback screens, wheel routes, trail routes, angle routes from Jeremiah Love. I would love to see Notre Dame do something with they kind of spread them out a little bit, maybe put Raridon into the boundary, go 3 receivers to the field. That way you get them to overreact, and that way you're almost guaranteeing a Jeremiah Love ISO to that side. Just have him run an angle route where it looks like he's going to run a slide and then come back in. Man, you got a one-on-one. That could be money. I could even see something like a seam route from one of your running backs, just delay, go right down the middle of the field, something like that comes wide. I mean, there's so many things you can do to this defensive structure to create those opportunities if A, you can design it well, and if B, you can protect it. And that's going to be a big key, is some of that stuff requires an extra second to hang on to the football. And then the final piece too, Trev, when you talk about creating ISOs, it's also there comes a point in time where CJ Carr's got to be like, I'm reading the one-on-one correctly. Because sometimes you may think you get a one-on-one and you just drop back, lock in, and throw the ball down the field, and you don't see that safety coming over and he picks it off. Correctly read it, but then he's just got to be willing to throw it. And to everyone, not just Malachi Fields, but to everyone. Jaden Greathouse is in a one-on-one. Don't wait till the semifinals to learn that that's uncovered with Jaden Greathouse, and then Jaden's got to make those catches. And he's got to make sure he doesn't get too frustrated with what's happened so far that when those times come, he goes and makes plays. So there's a lot of aspects of it, Trev, but that's going to be a big key. very big key, is when those opportunities come in those one-on-ones, whether it's Fields, Raritan, Love, Price, Greathouse, Faison, Malika or Micah Gilbert, maybe it's a KK Smith. I don't really care who it is. Ty Washington. When those times come, you gotta make the right read and get the ball out there, and you got to make the catches. But those opportunities, in my opinion, will be there in this game if you have the proper game plan, which I think Mike Denbrock will do. And he certainly did the last time he played this team.
Yeah, well, absolutely. All that has to be in place. CJ has to be willing to take some shots, which is exactly what he did. I mean, really, in their first two big matchups, he wasn't shy about taking advantage and correctly reading one-on-one. So hopefully that will carry over into their second road competition of the season. Listen, folks, that's going to do it for part 2 of today's show. Don't go anywhere. We're getting ready to talk keys to victory on defense. But before we get there, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the CFB Nation channel. I'm going to be going live tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time for the next installment of the Spread Option, something you're not going to want to miss because this is an awesome slate of games coming up this weekend. Whatever streaming platform you listen to us on, we greatly appreciate a 5-star review. But as always, the best way to support what we do is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com.